Welcome to the Fabulous 413. I'm Khalees Smith.
And I'm Monty Belmonte.
Rock knows no race, creed, gender, or age, and that last point is one at the very core of the mission for the Young at Heart Chorus. Their organization just passed the 40-year mark, and they're taking the stage for the Love Show this Sunday at the Academy of Music. We'll be joined by several members of the chorus and director Bob Silman for Live Music Friday.
And we'll talk with investigative journalist from Western Mass, Dusty Christensen, about his cover story in The Nation magazine, Exploitation, Abuse, and Death. The Dark Side of Working in the Weed Industry, a story that begins in Holyoke.
But first...
Usually on Fridays we enter the wine Thunderdome, but because it's Cinco de Mayo, it seemed like wine was not necessarily the direction to go in. Initially, I thought, what should we drink on Cinco de Mayo? And I thought about my friend, Chef Neftalí Durán, originally from Oaxaca, who now lives in Holyoke, and his passion for mezcal. Thank you for doing this.
Yeah,
Chef
of course.
Al.
Welcome. So, but according to our friend Caitlin, I'm one of those chefs that brings a lot of takeout.
And you did bring takeout from a Colombian restaurant on High Street that we've had the empanadas before.
They are a great place to go. They're great empanadas.
They're good empanadas, I'll give you that.
There's a lot of shade happening over here.
I know, right? And
I didn't know that this was the kind of Thunderdome we were coming to. Usually, we're the ones who bring the heat at the Thunderdome.
I know. And the point of the Thunderdome is 2 beverages enter, 1 leaves. We decide which one we like the best. We happen to be at the home in Holyoke of our guest from a couple weeks ago, who's also a storyteller at the CISA Field Notes event last weekend, Chelsea Gazillo. Thank you for having us on your porch.
Oh, you're welcome. Porch life.
Now, Khalees yesterday on the air did a great piece with Latinas 413 and Hot Plate Brewing in Pittsfield, who are trying to have a more appropriate celebration of Cinco de Mayo, which has been commandeered, like so many things, by U.S. Americans.
The irony being that it's a holiday that started in Texas.
It's not a huge holiday from what I understand in most places in Mexico. It is, as some people call it here, and you called it when you came onto the porch now,
Cinco de Drinko.
And nothing's wrong with drinking. We do it a lot. But there's better ways to celebrate, perhaps, this day than whatever kind of horrible drink you might put down your throat. And mezcal, for those who don't know, is part of the tradition, specifically from where you're from in Mexico.
And Puebla. There's a lot of nice mezcal in Puebla, Oaxaca, Guerrero, mostly southern states. But there is a connection with Texas, actually. You know, it's a tumultuous part of Mexican history. But the Battle of Puebla, which is mostly symbolic, the general who won that battle was born in Texas, Ignacio Zaragoza. So that may be why they started celebrating that.
And if it weren't for that victory, it's possible that the French could have come up and joined the Confederate Army, and the Civil War in this country would have looked very different. So there is a good reason to celebrate.
Yeah, I mean, the background behind that is that the English, the Spanish, and the French were owed money by Mexico, and they took the opportunity of the Civil War to start something with Mexico because the U.S. was distracted. The English and the Spanish left after a few months, but the French really wanted to expand their empire. In this case, it was Napoleon Bonaparte III, not the original one, but the third. And he, to make something happen with the Austrians, installed an Austrian emperor, Maximilian. And Maximilian was at war with the first indigenous president from Oaxaca. And eventually, once the Civil War in the U.S. ended, the U.S. pressure the French to really leave Mexico. Benito Juárez, the first president from Oaxaca, regains power, and because we like happy endings, they executed Maximilian.
The end. And that brings us to mezcal. For those who don't know what mezcal is, it's a tequila.
The other way around.
Yeah.
Tequila is a mezcal.
Tequila is a mezcal.
The tequila companies have done a really good job at marketing, so you would think that it's the other way around, but no. Mezcal is one of the oldest distillations in the whole continent, over 8,500 years. And mezcal, especially in the South, can be made with many different kinds of agave, including the now endangered wild agaves. For example, something the Khalees is about to open is a tepestate. It's a blend, but the tepestate takes up to 25 years to mature. and you harvest it once, and that's it. That's the end of that. So it's really special as opposed to tequila, which is only made from blue agave. Blue agave grows anywhere from like 7 to 10 years. But same thing, you harvest it and it's gone.
Now, when a lot of people think of mezcal, they think of a smokiness to it. Is all mezcal smoky?
No, not all mezcal is created equal. Most people that have tasted mezcal have really tasted low-quality mezcal. Good mezcal back home, it's above 50% alcohol. What we get in the U.S., because of regulations, nothing can come in that is over 50%. So what you're getting here is 40, 45, 38, a little bit not only lower quality, but also things that are not that interesting. Same as with wine. If you taste good mezcal, you should be able to taste the terroir, the sweetness, sometimes a little bit of smoke if it only had one distillation. But usually good mezcal would be distilled at least twice. There'll be a hint of smoke, but it's not on the front end. This one is a blend, Tepestate, Tobalá, and Espadín, I believe. Mm-hmm. And this was for a celebration of a music teacher last year. He turned 91 years old, and he wanted a big celebration, so they did a batch of this beautiful blend. And this is probably the last bottle.
Ooh, so we won't drink the whole thing. We'll only taste a little bit of it. And then what's this? You brought another mezcal in what looks like a hand-labeled jug.
Yeah, that one is a straight-up Tepestate, not a blend. From the same family, that agave takes 25 to 30 years to mature.
We're on, as we mentioned, Chelsea Gazillo's porch, but let's talk to the other tasters. What's your name, sir?
Bill Perry.
Also from Holyoke.
Caitlin Marquis, also from Holyoke.
All right, Holyoke represents on this porch. We're going to go into the Mezcal Thunderdome. Let's eat oysters that you got from Maine.
From Maine, yes.
Yeah, and they are...
Secret Maine oysters is what they are.
You have to reach out to us individually if you want to know about this. Naf, you started this too, and this was like a pandemic-era balm for you, right?
Yeah, this was a way to survive the pandemic when restaurants were not open and we needed something delicious to eat. We started ordering back in 2020 from farms in Maine. They ship overnight, really affordable. They come out to like $1.25 per oyster, and the quality is really good, really amazing oysters.
We're going to eat the oysters and empanadas, and we'll dig into the mezcal and other beverages.
Tell me more about who made this mezcal.
A family in a very specific town. I usually don't like name the families or the towns because we don't want everyone to go there. That I've been working with not only on tasting their mezcal, but we're also been working on reforestation projects with this family. This family of musicians and mezcal makers.
Hence the dude on the label with the saxophone.
And the name of it is Dos Pasiones. You can buy it mostly in the West Coast right now, but eventually you'll be able to buy it in the East Coast. Dos Pasiones Mezcal.
The other thing that we should get to that's a little more serious about mezcal and tequila, there's been an influx of people that aren't from Mexico originally going down there and taking advantage of where these cactus, this agave grows, and making their own labels, making their own imprints, and affecting the indigenous makers of this product, right?
Yeah, I mean, we just had a press conference last week. Most of the mezcal brands are owned by people not from Oaxaca, which really devalues not only the craft, but also it cheapens the spirit of sharing this. Mezcal is not meant to be drank every day, or it's only for celebration and only for special occasions. And if we drink it as we drink tequila on Cinco de Mayo, it's really not sustainable. And it's not only not sustainable because of the plant, but monocropping in general. We've seen that over and over, all over the United States, including here. Monocropping is not good for the environment. And on top of that, you have the economic pressure of money really not coming back to our communities.
Initial thoughts, please?
This smells kind of amazing in the glass. Like a little tropically, almost like starfruit-y, and then like a little hint of smoke, but it smells sweet.
Yeah, the first whiff I got had a smoke to it, but then it gets to this almost thing. It smells like baby powder from like the 1980s. I don't know. Can you see? It might be the power of suggestion, but it's like the baby powder that was around my house in the 80s.
There's like a grandma's attic smell off of it a little bit.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
I love when people use weird things to describe smells and tastes. It's my favorite.
I'm getting notes of dried robin's blood, old dirty cashews, and just a hint of a robot's bathwater.
What do you get out of this now?
Pleasure. The other thing that we also say is mezcal is you're supposed to kiss it. Besos de mezcal, kisses. It's not shots.
Yeah, right.
it sips so smoothly.
Right?
It's so nice. Yeah.
Do you find with the producers that have moved in, I mean, you were talking about monoculture, clearly they're paying less attention to sustainability, especially with a crop that takes years, sometimes decades to grow?
No, I mean, this is the new gold rush. Everyone wants to make money, and not only they're cutting corners, but one of my family's projects down there is not reforestation and water conservation. So we see large monocropping, but also water theft, meaning people are drilling deep wells, to keep planting agave.
What is overplanting of agave do to the soil?
Yeah, beyond the depletion of the soil, the most worrisome thing for me, and we've seen that a lot this year, is the lack of native grasses and native trees, which nowadays we have monsoon-like rains. So, and we're seeing a lot of erosion and flooding, a lot of flooding. And if the soil is already poor and then there's flooding, the floods are taking any topsoil that there may have been left.
And frankly, your plants with them because, they don't have anything to hold on to.
Right.
Are there farmers that are implementing sustainable soil practices?
Last winter, I go home every winter. I talk to a lot of younger farmers, our age and younger, and we're pretty young.
We keep telling ourselves.
Younger farmers really understand we will not have food and future generations if we don't take care of the soil and the environment. However, because the pressure to produce is so large, there's only families and some communities are taking care of the ecosystem. But it's hard. And then the philosophical and ethical question for all of us, should we really be drinking mezcal? We don't have to. Should we? And it's really hard to answer that question because the pressure of capitalism will make people continue to make mezcal. Are there opportunities to do better? Absolutely. Are there families and communities that are trying? Of course. But the hungry ghost of capitalism will make us, want to drink more of this. And right now, the boom is in the U.S. and in Europe. It's pretty big. People feel pressure to make money now. The economic reality of peasant families in Oaxaca, where the minimum daily wage, not hourly wage, minimum daily wage is less than $10 a day for a laborer. So how are we going to say or judge communities for trying to make some money when the disparity, which the U.S. is majorly responsible for, is so great?
So the second mezcal, Nef, it's not blended. It's just one type of agave?
Yeah, that's the Tepestate 25 to 30-year-old growth, single agave.
And you were saying that the other ones, there are different types of agave that went into that other one.
That one, I think, is particularly delicious because it was made for a celebration of an elder. Some purists will say that not to drink ensembles, which are blends, but this one is really good. There was a lot of love going into that one, and you can tell.
What were the types of agave that were in that one?
Three wild ones actually. Tepestate, which it takes the longest to mature. The other one is Jabalí, which is really difficult to work with. I think there are some tannins that make it difficult to work, so there are people that know how to make it, and then other people struggle. And then the other one is Tobalá, which is like a 12-year growth. And the fourth one is Espadín, which is now the cultivated one.
What do you think about the second one, the single agave?
It smells so cool.
Less smoky and less baby powdery to me.
Not smoky at all. It smells like trees.
Yeah, and there's more of an umami flavor of this one. It definitely feels meaty. Bill?
A little, like you said, a little less smoky, still super complex. Maybe not as sweetness.
Yeah,
not as much sweetness.
You were saying you like when people come up with weird things that it smells like. I'm getting new car smell off of it.
Oh, I'm getting a new car, so that's perfect.
I'm getting a new car too. Old new car, but
okay, cool.
If you don't put the electric slide in there when I say it's electric, I'm going to be a little mad at you.
It's electric! Chef Neftalí Durán, who's guiding us on this tour. Lots of wines and other alcohols are aged in oak or barrels, but mezcal is not.
Mezcal is aged in glass, traditionally blown glass, carboys, and that's what people usually use now. But with the demand, it's getting really hard to get them. And you also have to remember, mezcal is not supposed to be brown or yellow. That's usually a good telltale sign that it's not a good one. It has to be clear.
Pro tip.
And also, try to avoid anything that has a scorpion or a guarm. There's mezcals that like people putting like snakes and herbs and other things, and those are traditional healing properties, but it takes away from the spirit.
You can't have either of these mezcals in this part of the country at this point, but we will put a list up there of recommended by Chef Neff mezcals that you might be able to get. But the two that we have here that Neff brought with him from Oaxaca, one which is a celebratory mezcal that was a blend, and one that is awesomely labeled in a jug with a piece of scotch tape on it, but it's a single varietal of agave. Votes on which one you like the best. Bill.
Oh, I love this hint of smokiness of the Dos Pasiones. It's just, and there's a lot of really subtle, awesome flavors going on in there.
Chelsea.
I think the second one was smoother, the single varietal, and I love that it's from Neff's family.
Khalees.
Man, this is a hard choice, but I think I'm going to go with the second one. I like all the vegetal notes in it. The oysters offset both of them to make it sweeter, but like it's a little more subtle with the second one.
I loved them both a lot, so this is a really tough decision.
It's a really tough decision. I don't want to choose.
Yeah, but I like...
Bill and I over here are like, we choose.
Like, we have no stake in this. Who cares about our choices?
I'm going to make it even so that Neff can be the deciding vote. I'm going to go with the blend, the 25-year Dos Pasiones. So, Chef Neff, you're the deciding vote here.
I went to this party last May, 91st birthday of this elder who taught music to so many kids around the state. There were like 1,000 people at this party, so just because it has sentimental value, I'm going with that. But it's also delicious. A blend is delicious.
Mm-hmm.
There's the winner. And thank you for elucidating the world of mezcal to us on this Cinco de Mayo.
Absolutely. Please drink responsibly and don't shoot mezcal. And try to buy good mezcal that is owned by families from Oaxaca.
And don't be racist today.
You know, don't put a sombrero, don't take the pictures. Enjoy the culture, enjoy the food, you know, have a beverage, but stop with the nonsense.
You might not be able to get the mezcal that Chef Neftalí Durán tasted with us, but you can taste his cooking next weekend at Collider Fest at Bombix in Florence. And next week on the show, we'll have the producer of Collider Fest, Ito Moore, talking about the incredible music he's bringing to the 413 from around the world.
Coming up, investigative journalist Dusty Christensen on his cover story in The Nation magazine about the hidden dangers of the cannabis industry. You're listening to the Fabulous 413 on NEPM.
Welcome back to the Fabulous 413. Dusty Christensen is an investigative reporter based in Western Massachusetts. Currently teaches news writing and reporting at UMass Amherst, and sometimes gets hired by the NEPM news department to report on stories
that we can't report on because we can't report on
about
ourselves.
NEPM. And you have written a cover story in The Nation magazine. The headline: Exploitation, Abuse, and Death, the Dark Side of Working in the Weed Industry. The cannabis industry is booming, the subtitle says, but workers say they face low wages, rapacious bosses, and life-threatening conditions. I thought, Dusty, it would be great for you to read, without the F word that's in there, the first couple paragraphs of this, because I think it really sets the scene.
Sure, I can do some scene setting for you. There's a memory that haunts Laura Brunau, like a video playing over and over. She remembers the unremarkable, have a good one, she gave her only child, Lorna McMurray, as she dropped her off at the cannabis processing facility in Holyoke, Mass, where she worked. It was January 4th, 2022, the last day Brunau saw her daughter conscious. Later that day, Lorna texted her that she was having a hard time walking and breathing at the same time. Brunau raced to the facility, but by the time she arrived, ambulances and fire trucks were already there. She watched as paramedics wheeled her daughter out on a gurney, one of them straddling on top of her, just pounding at her chest, she said. I'll never forget that sight, Brunau said. I lost it. I just started screaming, oh my God, save my baby.
It's a really tragic story that went underreported for a long time, and you've brought it to the light of the nation, literally, the United States, and the magazine called The Nation. But you came across this story because of a podcast, is that true?
Yeah, there's a podcaster and cannabis activist Mike Crawford, who runs this podcast called The Young Jerks. Not sure why it's called that.
Well, there's the Young Turks, so maybe it's a play on that, I'm assuming.
Mike's great, and Mike is very plugged into the world of cannabis workers, speaks to a lot of them on the air, and was the first one to notice this fine that OSHA had levied against the company where Lorna McMurray worked, True Leave in Holyoke, based on her death in the workplace. They initially said that it was because of the hazards of ground cannabis dust in the workplace, and initially charged the company $35,000 around that in fines. Since then, the
it
OSHA,
got reduced, right?
It did get reduced to around $14,000, which True Leave, they posted something like $680 million in profits last year. Probably had no problem paying, no trouble. And, those fines got reduced, and they've also agreed to do a study now of whether cannabis dust, ground cannabis dust, should be considered a hazardous chemical in occupational settings. They've since said that it's likely that Lorna died from an asthma attack. So obviously we as reporters at The Nation, this is also co-published with a local news outlet, The Shoestring, decided that this was a lens onto a much bigger issue. I'd spent a lot of time when I worked at the Daily Hampshire Gazette talking with cannabis workers. I know some of them personally myself, and knew that there was a bigger story here about the kind of working conditions in these grow facilities that are all across our state and region, and obviously across the nation as well.
Do you find that there's a difference, at least in workplace, between the places that are like interstate, like larger, like countrywide organizations, and the places that are much smaller, like local operations?
That's a really good question, and I know that the workers that we spoke to mentioned that maybe if they had worked in the industry previously when it was more, as they said, like mom and pop, that the working conditions did tend to be better. They knew their bosses directly. As you note, True Leave, this one facility, this one company that we focused on, is a multi-state operator. They've got operations all over the place. They're based in Florida. And a lot of these really big companies were some of the ones where we were able to find fines from OSHA, for example, detailing workplace injuries and hazards. These were also some of the companies that were engaged in union busting, as we discovered through federal filings that those companies have to make when they hire anti-union consultants. So I do think that some of these people we spoke to felt like these big multi-state operators, these kind of Walmarts of cannabis, if you will, had a worse record than say some of the smaller operations.
And it must be pretty hard to unionize in the industry anyway because of its tenuous legality nationwide. Yeah,
and I think it's important to note this. I mean, private sector workers in the United States, by and large, are non-union, which is kind of the exception. Across the world, in similar countries, I want to say it's something like 6% of private sector workers are unionized in the United States, which is incredibly low. It's been on the decline for decades. And so cannabis is no different. I think in the cannabis industry, like the newspaper industry that I previously worked in, there's a lot of really passionate people that are really excited about working in that industry. And that often can be a recipe for management and bosses to take advantage of that excitement and pay people less than maybe they feel like they're worth, and create workplaces that can be toxic.
Probably worth noting that you, Dusty Christensen, were a big part of the movement to unionize the Daily Hampshire Gazette at that time. And
That's
this
right.
article in The Nation, in conjunction with the Shoestring, big ups to the Shoestring and the great work that they're doing here locally, is, that I think that...
It's so nice to see this reversal.
Yeah, I know. I lost my train of thought. That you're involved in the union, and a big part of the story goes into the union busting at the end of it. So that's worth noting too. But what I want to go back to for a second is the idea that the person who died, Lorna McMurray, the first story, and you mentioned that we don't know this yet, had to do with dust and the cannabis dust. There is an OSHA study. We won't know about that until the end of the month. That's when they anticipate that study will be released, right? Whether
right.
This is actually... Have doctors changed their opinion about it? Is it still up in the air? Do you anticipate that if it were cannabis dust, that this could then be some sort of wrongful death lawsuit that could be pending?
That's a good question. I don't know about the lawsuit question. I do know that this is an issue that experts are really focused on. We spoke to one in particular by the name of Cora Lynn Sack, an assistant professor at the University of Washington's Department of Environmental and Occupational Health Sciences. That's a mouthful. And she and her colleagues have done a lot of really in-depth research into this particular issue at indoor grow facilities and looking at some of the hazards that may exist for workers. She herself is an expert in sort of respiratory hazards in the workplace. And in one report they released in 2020, they found a high prevalence of, quote, work-related allergic and particularly respiratory symptoms in that facility's employees. They've since gone on to do more studies that seem to confirm those findings that, not only is it the issue of dust, which is a serious occupational hazard in a whole bunch of industries. We talked to one worker who likened it to his time in the construction industry, breathing sawdust.
I was going to make a correlation to like coal mining.
Yeah, exactly. Particulate matter is never good for your lungs. But
pneumono-ultramicroscopic silicovolcanoconiosis, formerly the longest word in the English language, black lung disease from coal.
There you go. But obviously there's also this issue of sensitization, which is a word that I learned also in reporting the story to cannabis from working in these facilities. So, I've heard from workers after this story was published who've reached out to me saying that, I never needed an emergency inhaler until I started working in a cannabis facility. And so this is an issue that really needs a lot more research. And unfortunately, because of the federal prohibition on cannabis still continuing, it's a little hard to do some of that research. But, dedicated experts like Cora Lynn Sack are engaged in that work as we speak.
And I would remind people, as somebody in the room who has asthma, dust is a trigger for asthma attacks regardless of the type of dust. So like saying that it was an asthma attack as opposed to the dust causing it is kind of ignoring the cause of the initial attack altogether. So,
and the irony is not lost on me that this story was written by Dusty Christensen for The Nation magazine, the cover story right now.
I really hope that people can see my hear my disapproving look right now.
But what I want to ask, and this may seem like a rudimentary question, if cannabis can be eaten to get high, if you breathe cannabis all day, are people leaving the workplace high?
I doubt it because I think that might be no, because, as I understand it, the process through which you're able to turn cannabis into something that can make you high is called decarboxylation. It's why, for example, if you've ever made edibles, you bake the cannabis before you then put it in the butter and cook the two together. I am not a science person, so I don't know the particular chemistry behind what changes when you do that. But so I imagine that no, just inhaling the dust that has not been decarboxylated would not do that to you.
All right, I'm going to add that word to pneumono-ultramicroscopic silicovolcanoconiosis.
All kinds of great big words today.
I love it.
I have a question about language, actually. So we were talking with the word nerd earlier about the informalization of language, and one thing that I noticed in your article is how casual, like, all of this, like, large amounts of information are. And you teach, like, reporting at UMass. Has that been a trend that you've been a part of or attributing or like just noticing and now participating in? You mean like making language more informal and more, as reporters, and this is something I always tell my students, like, ultimately we're writing for everybody. We want to be understood and by any reader that picks something up, whether it's a 10-year-old picking up the newspaper or a 90-year-old, whether it's somebody with a GED or several PhDs. Like, we want our reporting to be accessible to everybody because our whole ethos is to hold powerful people accountable and to sort of be the people's voice, so to speak, capital P. And so I think it's really important to be conversational in writing. I'm always trying to avoid jargon. I hate when I read these really heady essays that are so good that delve into really deep issues but use all these words like concomitantly or like any number of other words that, like, I'm just like, okay, if I have to use a dictionary to look it up, like, maybe this isn't the most accessible piece of writing, which, like, that's not to say there's not a place for those words, of course. Like,
we used two big words already earlier.
Exactly. But I think for me anyways, like, I like to write in simple language that people are going to understand and be able to digest no matter where they are in life.
One thing that I got from your article, Dusty Christensen, in The Nation, cover story right now, that I didn't know about was, when people, especially in the Commonwealth, think about cannabis, the city that I think they think of is Northampton. The number of pot shops there is high. It's the highest, I believe, certainly per capita.
Yeah.
But Holyoke may be the place where we should be thinking about when we think about cannabis because of production, right?
That's right. I'm sure that a lot of folks in this area know that Holyoke is one of the first industrially planned cities in the country. They have a municipal dam and canal system that makes it so that they can have really cheap electricity. And as a result, there's this long history of industry, operating in Holyoke. It used to be the paper city. The former mayor, Alex Morse, joked that he wanted to make it rolling paper city. The city rolled out the red carpet for the cannabis industry.
There's two of you in here.
I know. And for good reason, because, a lot of these mill buildings were sitting vacant. And it's my understanding that other manufacturers aren't really able to use those buildings for the way that they're set up, but the cannabis industry was, and so it was this win-win for economic planners in the city of Holyoke to be able to bring these new businesses into these mill buildings, to breathe life back into them, and to operate a business in those places that maybe had been sitting vacant. Holyoke now has more licenses approved from the Cannabis Control Commission than any other city in the Commonwealth. That's far more than Boston, than Worcester. And, the economic planning director in the city, Aaron Vega, who used to be the state rep representing Holyoke.
And is quoted extensively in the article.
Yes. Described it as a mecca for cannabis manufacturers. Holyoke has really become a kind of cannabis cluster here in our region when it comes to to growing and to manufacturing, which is when you take the plant and turn it into pre-rolls or gummies or whatever other things that you're seeing on the store shelves.
There's something to the visuals of Holyoke being used for manufacturing and production and Northampton being used for sales that we don't have to get into right now.
But I think
but those optics are right there.
An obvious connection right there. We're speaking with Dusty Christensen, talking about exploitation, abuse, and death, the dark side of working in the weed industry. It does seem from your article, though, that this industry, by and large, is beneficial to at least Holyoke and many of the other places where it's booming like this.
That certainly, I certainly think that's the view of economic planners and folks in Holyoke. Obviously, when you're able to bring jobs and tax income into the city, especially to buildings that were formerly vacant, that's considered a win. I should note that these jobs, especially when it comes to trimmers, post-harvesters, packagers, are not exactly the highest paid jobs. The organization Vangst, which is a hiring platform for the cannabis industry, put out a report that in 2022 those folks made between $16 and $20 an hour. That's not a living wage in Western Massachusetts.
Nope.
In many of the communities around here. And so I do think that is a point to be considered, that obviously there are these benefits to the cannabis industry coming in, tax revenue. They also pay these community impact fees. Holyoke just used some of theirs to fix their roads, to pay for public art. So things that we can all agree are good things. But obviously it's a mixed bag. And, I'll leave the decision about whether it's worth it or not up to the folks who do that, for their living as economic planners. As reporters, I think it's our job to make sure people are informed about all that goes into this.
On those impact fees, this is the only industry that has to pay those sort of things. You could have a million liquor stores in your town, and there's no impact fees from those liquor stores. Is there a time, in your opinion, to let those go? Or is because of the dangers that we don't know about with the dangers of making cannabis in this way, is that a reason to keep them
going? Or
is it
like an offset because of the state versus federal thing?
It's actually an interesting thing. There has been, as you rightly note, some controversy around these impact fees because, right, like other businesses, liquor store doesn't have to pay an impact fee for their impact on the community, and I think you can all agree that they do have an impact.
If you have a brewery, you're making alcohol, you don't have to pay an impact
right,
fee.
Exactly. There was, there was a reform to the way that impact fees are done on the state level that went into the latest changes to the cannabis law in our state. And so, there has been some changes to start to give that up. I know Boston just last year refunded millions of marijuana impact fees. I think they were the first city in the state to relinquish those funds because there has been a lot of controversy. I know that it escapes me what city, but there was a city in the eastern part of the state where the mayor was essentially collecting them as bribes and got busted for that. So there has definitely been a lot of controversy about them, and I know that folks in the marijuana industry are against them, and I can understand why.
Dusty Christensen, a reporter, a professor at UMass teaching journalism, and has written the cover story for The Nation magazine, along in conjunction with our local independent journalist source, The Shoestring, Exploitation, Abuse, and Death, the dark side of working in the weed industry. Has a lot to do with things that go on here in Holyoke and in the 413. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me. This is great.
No problem. Up next, the Young at Heart Chorus. They'll be bringing their concert, The Love Show, to the Academy of Music on Sunday, but they'll be right here in studio along with their director, Bob Silman, with a little bit of that love just for you.
You're listening to the Fabulous 413.
Well, when I'm lying in my bed at night, I don't want to grow up. Nothing ever seems to turn out right. I don't want to grow up.
That is the unmistakable sounds of the Young at Heart Chorus, the Valley and the world's favorite octogenarian rock and roll chorus based right in Northampton. And we are joined in the studio by the founder of the Young at Heart Chorus, Bob Silman, and two of the chorus members, John Reinhardt and Lee Wilson. Maybe before we start talking about the genesis of this chorus and the future of the chorus and the performance happening this weekend, maybe we should hear a song.
We should absolutely hear a song.
Lee Wilson, you're going to be taking the lead on this one. Do you mind if we share your age?
I'm 82 years old.
What's that? One more time.
I'm 82 years old.
Excellent.
82 years young.
There we go.
Great. And we've got Mark Gianfrido on the keyboard backing you up. What song are you going to perform?
I'm going to be doing I Still Got It.
By Lee Fields.
By Lee Fields.
Another
yes.
Lee.
Oh, save me. I've been around, held myself, not listen up. I'm away, I'm good and dangerous. Take it from me, and I'll show you how. Take my head, my shoes, my guy, I still got it, I still got it. Take my car, my house, my bed, I still got it, I still got it. You gotta be cool, break all the rules. It ain't about money, but you need some too. Hey ladies, big ones, tall ones, short ones, black ones, white ones, all ones. I still got it, I still got it. Take my head, my shoes, my guy, I still got it, I still got it. Take my car, my house, my bed, I still got it, I still got it. Take it from me, I've seen everything. You gotta be cool, but you're breaking the rules. Love what you got. If you don't use it, you're gonna lose it. Take my head, my shoes, my guy, I still got it, I I still gotta take my car, my house, my bed. I still gotta take my head, my shoes, my gun. I still gotta take my car, my house, my bed. I still gotta, wow, wow, my, wow, wow, yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah, is right. That's Lee Wilson, age 82 years old, singing Lee Fields from the Young at Heart Chorus. Lee, how have you been singing your whole life?
Well, I studied music when I was younger, and I was with the junior extension of the Tuesday Morning Music Club. I always sang classical music.
Uh-huh.
So, yeah, and I sing with our church choir. Yeah. So.
And famously, the Young at Heart Chorus plays like rock and roll songs from the ages. Is there an artist that you have discovered through this process that you now are a fan of that you had no idea about before?
No,
you don't like any of them.
That face is priceless. I wish you could see it.
The one I just sang, Lee Fields.
Yeah.
Who's coming to the Drake next week?
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that we should have him on, too. We'll tell him that you came and sang his song.
Sure.
What does this chorus mean to you, Lee?
Well, when you retire, you have to have something to do. Mm-hmm. So this keeps me busy, because other than that, I don't know what I would be doing right now. And, I just love every minute of it. Yeah, because it really fills the gap, even though it's just 2 days a week. But, we have words that we have to learn. And, we have to keep our energy up. I go to the senior club or the senior group, and I'm with seniors. And I'm constantly going. I'm never home.
Because you guys do, dance moves at the same time.
Yes.
Like, you're way more active on stage than a lot of acts that I've actually seen, who are decades younger.
And this show, really, yes. It's really, we're really doing it.
Well, let's hear a little bit about the show. Chorus director Bob Silman, tell us about what will happen at the Academy of Music this Sunday.
Well, we're going to have a show called The Love Show. And God, we need love, right?
Right.
And,
love is all you need.
Well, we got a lot of it in this show. All kinds of love, good love, bad love, love gone sour. But, what Lee didn't tell you is that she didn't list as one of her favorite new performers as Lizzo, who she's going to be doing at the show.
Oh, well, very nice.
Yeah, we won't tell you which song.
Okay.
I hope it's 'Cause I Love You.
Well, it's not.
Mostly because, I'm listening to you sing, and I'm like, oh, I would really love to hear you do that.
That would be really
but
nice.
I can keep that as my private, project in my heart.
Bob, this chorus has been...
We're one that we'll work on right after the show.
Thank you.
This chorus has been going on for more than 40 years now, right?
Yeah, this is his 41st year.
Where did this idea come from? To get people of a certain age, now over 80, is that what's the age limit to be part of the chorus?
You have to be 75.
75.
But the average age right now is 86.
Mm-hmm. We had Rosemary Kane on St. Patrick's Day. Mm-hmm. She sent and wrote a wonderful thing about how this chorus, what it means to her as a musician. But where did the idea come from to do songs with older people, but that come from a different generation?
Well, I got this job running a meal site for the elderly. And... Well, the food was pretty horrible, but so I needed to kind of redeem myself and do something. And this woman came around and said, I can play the piano. Can you get some people together? And we got 25 people to show up at a rehearsal. And that's what we now have, 25. It's just kept going for 41 years. And it was really cool in the very beginning, too. It all started at one place, the Walter Salvo House in Northampton. But now we're much more a regional chorus, much more diverse than we used to be.
And internationally, you have historically gone on international tours. There's an incredible documentary that was made about, what year was that?
That was 2006. They came and made the documentary, and then it got picked up by Fox Searchlight in 2008.
Yeah, and went around the world.
Yeah.
We're talking with Bob Silman, the director of the Young at Heart Chorus, and we have heard the voice of Lee Wilson and the piano of Mark Gianfrido, but we want to hear from John Reinhardt, and we'll hear his song coming up right after this on the Fabulous 413. We're back on the Fabulous 413 with the Young at Heart Chorus with chorus director Bob Sillman, with Lee Wilson, 82 years old with a gorgeous voice, will be performing Lizzo and more on Sunday at the Academy of Music. And John Reinhardt, would you care to share your age with the audience?
Well, if I live to be on October the 1st, I will be 88 years old.
Amazing. Yes. And what song are you going to sing, John?
Aaron Neville song.
Tell it like it is.
We're going to sing background. Tell it like it is.
We've been invited to sing background again.
We're part of the chorus. Yes, you are. This is going to be cool.
If you want something to play with, go and find yourself a toy. Baby, my time is too expensive, and I'm not a little boy. If you are serious, don't play with my heart, it makes me furious. But if you want me to love you, then baby I will. Girl, you know I will. Tell it like it is. Don't be ashamed. Let your conscience be your guide. But I know deep down inside of me, I believe that you love me. Forget your foolish pride. Life is too short to have sorrow. You may be here today and gone tomorrow. You may as well get what you want. So go on and live, baby, go on and live. Tell it like it is. I'm nothing to play with. Go and find yourself a toy. Tell it like it is. My time is too expensive, and I'm not a little boy. Tell it like it is. Don't be ashamed. Let your conscience be your guide. But I know deep down inside of me, I believe that you love me. Forget your foolish pride. Tell it like it is. Got to tell it, tell it. Tell it like it is. Ooh, tell it like it is. Go on and tell it, tell it, tell it like it is. Ooh.
John Reinhardt on lead, 88 years old, one of the members of the Young at Heart Chorus, and Mark Gianfrido on the wonderful keyboard there, doing Aaron Neville. Maybe he heard it. I think he lives in like either the Berkshires or upstate New York, and now that we cover the 4 counties, perhaps he heard that. I'll ask the same question to you, John, in the minute or two we have left. Any artists that you've discovered through this process that you didn't know before?
Not really. No, not.
And what about and the chorus itself? What does the community around the chorus mean to you?
Well, it means a lot to me. Like Lee said, since I retired, I'm the type of person that likes to stay busy, and I worked until I was 74 years old, and I stopped working then because my job lost their contract, so I retired.
Yeah. You would have kept going.
I would have kept going.
Yeah.
No,
Bob Silman, before we break here, tell us one more time about the show this Sunday and what it means.
Well, the show is called The Love Show, and it's going to be at the Academy of Music Theater Sunday at 3 p.m. You can get tickets at aomtheater.com. That's theaterre.com.
The pretentious way, I like to say.
Yeah,
but I love you. I love you, Academy of Music Theater.
I also love that your shows are always at like a really reasonable time of day where like you can go in the afternoon, have a nice little spot of music, and then go do other things.
Because none of us are getting any younger.
No,
soon you'll be old enough, Bob Silman, to be in your own chorus.
I am going to be very close to it soon.
Well, thank you all so much for coming in.
Thanks for having us, Mike.
No problem. Next week, East Hampton is full of cool things, and that list now includes a film festival. We'll talk to organizer Chris Ferry and filmmakers Melissa Demetris and Wally Marzano-Lesnovich about what they're bringing to Whoville.
And Nero Orchestra makes a return to the stage next week. We'll talk with conductor Kaylin Marcel Manson and the first chair violinist Michi Wiyanko from the Silk Road Ensemble. Our director is Tony Aaron Wrangler Dunn.
Our engineer is Betsy. Now you can be crowned King of England, Cordis.
Our technical team is Bart, fill-in-the-blank Rankin, Kara, Can We Shift Allegiance Foster, and Punk Rock Dubé.
Musical thanks to Spouse and Happy Valley Guitar Orchestra and a large slew of others.
We'll see you Monday in the Fabulous 413.